The Bible is such a rich book with a lot of wonderful nuggets that can be able to help us in our own life. Welcome to Fresh Word to the World. My name is John Kimani. Last week, we began with Matthew chapter 1 and we began with a genealogy where we saw the many names that are mentioned. They actually was a proof that Jesus Christ was not a myth. He was not an illusion, but Jesus Christ was a historical figure that existed. And again, that Jesus Christ was born in a unique and a powerful way in which we need to appreciate that he came with the name Jesus, which simply means that he came to save the world. And now, thank you very much for the wonderful comments that you've been posting to us. And now, let's switch gears to reason to Matthew chapter 2.
Chapter 2. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked,
"Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him."
When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said,
"Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him."
After they had heard the king, they went on their way. The star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream.
"Get up,"
He said,
"take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him."
So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said,
"Get up and take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead."
So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, "He will be called a Nazarene." He had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said,
"Get up and take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who are trying to take the child's life are dead."
So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, "He will be called a Nazarene." So his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, "He will be called a Nazarene." fulfilled what was said through the prophets, he will be called a Nazarene. A Nazarene.
Well, I just want to believe that you've heard, and it's just a straightforward and very interesting story. And Matthew, the tax collector, actually takes us to explain to us the first few days of Jesus' birth. And interesting enough, we see that Maggie came and visited Jesus Christ. Now, we are dividing our reading into three sections. The first question is, what did you read? Or what we are asking the head. What did you read? And what do we read from this passage? Well, I know you must have read many things, but this is what we have read for today. Now we read about Jesus' birth, and he was born during the reign of King Herod. Now Herod was not a friendly king; he was a brutal, but again a builder. But again, when Jesus was born, we see that the king was actually disturbed. He was worried. You know, he was a wealthy and a politically gifted king. But again, when he heard that there was another king, the king of the Jews, had been born, he was so worried. He was full of insecurity. He was full of fear. But again, he worked it out with the wise men, with the Magi, to locate and to know where this king of the Jews is born, so that they can be able to get back to him and tell him where this baby is. We should say the reason why the wise men passed to King Herod was for protocol purposes. They wanted to ensure and tell the king that we have arrived. Now, interesting enough is that the king died without having witnessed or seen the king of the Jews, because he had planned a lot of harm. Now, when you look at the angel, he had a lot of role. He had the role of instructing Joseph on what to do. He instructed Joseph to leave Bethlehem and flee to Egypt, because Herod was actually against him. Again, we see him instructing Joseph to come back to home, and he actually instructed him on specifically place Nazareth, where he was to stay. But even again, we also see that the angel instructing the wise men on not to go back to Herod. So the angel then becomes a protector. An angel becomes somebody who actually ensures that the baby Jesus is safe, and is safe from the hands of the enemy. But even more interesting enough, we talk about who we call the Magi, or the wise men. The Magi are kind of divine helpers, and one of the things that they do is that they travel very far, and they bring very special gifts, wonderful gifts, expensive gifts to the baby Jesus. They are generous. If you look at what they came, if you put value, some people would put the value, some scholars are actually putting the value of what they brought to 4 million US dollars. If you convert that, you can see the whopping amount of money in Kenyan shillings that they brought to Jesus generously. But even more importantly is that they were also very curious to know which is this special star and what does it signify. And no wonder they asked the question, where is this star that we have seen from the east that shows the birth, or indicate, or actually symbolizes the birth of Jesus Christ? That is what we have read. Okay? Now, let's ask the next question, which is the heart. What lessons do we pick from this? From Matthew chapter 2. Now, number one, our response toward Jesus Christ is different. For the Magi, they were excited, they were happy that the King of Jews had been born. For Herod, he was so worried, he was so concerned, he was so bothered, he became so insecure, he became unsettled. For the angel, his response was, I need to protect this baby. I need to keep this baby safe so that he is not stolen, so that he is not killed, so that harm does not come to him. And so we see different responses to Jesus Christ, as we have said. And then the other lesson that we pick, that no amount of powerful, intimidating leadership can be able to take away, can be able to harm that which is God's project. Herod, despite his power, despite his political connection, despite his intelligence, despite having met with the wise men, he was unable, completely unable. In his life, he died without having accomplished his purpose of eliminating Jesus Christ. And though bratty and violent, and somebody who was a go-getter, somebody who was a no-nonsense, somebody that was never missed it, he missed to kill Jesus Christ. Yet, yes, he killed a lot of babies during his time, but again, even of more interest, he was completely unable. God hid the baby Jesus. And then thirdly, we see how the angel was able to communicate with Joseph, and how Joseph cooperated with him. In those scary and intimidating moments, when God spoke and instructed Joseph through the angel on when to leave and when to go back, where to go and where not to go, when to go and when not to go, Joseph actually cooperated with the divine being, and he ended up saving the baby Jesus. So section number 3 is where we ask, Hans, what action should we take? We propose we should take 3 actions. Number 1, we should be attentive. We should be able to reason to that which God is saying in our lives. In this time and day when things are happening, when there is a lot of noise, in this time when Kenyans are going for elections, it is high time that Kenyans become attentive and ask, who do you want us to elect? Who do you want to become us to elect as the president, as the governor, as the MCA, as the women rep, as the MP? Who is it that you want us to elect? We need to be attentive and listen to the direction that God is giving us, such that we are not directed, we are not influenced by the tribal affiliation nor by party affiliation, but we are guided by God. And when we become attentive and listen to the voice of God, then God is going to tell us on who we need to elect. Number 2, we also need to be confident in spite of danger, in spite of fearful circumstances that Joseph was going through. Joseph was confident. He was not alarmed. He followed the instructions of God through the angel, because the angel communicated to him and told him what to do and what not to do. He was able to move, and he was able to feel confident, and he was able to save Jesus Christ. One of the temptations that the devil does into our lives or brings to our lives is to make us fearful, is to intimidate us, is to scare us, is to fill us with fear. And when we are filled with fear, we lack confidence in our own lives, and we are not able to make a move in our lives. And so it's a challenge for all of us that we become confident in God, that God is guiding us, God is protecting our destiny, God is protecting our lives, God is protecting our ideas. Whatever it is that He has begun in our own lives, He is going to make it successful. And so we do not need to be worried. We don't need to be scared. We just need to relax in God's hands, because we are guided, we are directed, we are following God, and God is telling us what to do and what not to do. And then thirdly, not only do we need to be attentive to the direction of God, not only do we need to be confident in times of crisis, but even more importantly is that we need to be focused. For Joseph, there was a lot of things that were crying for his attention. Babies were being killed on one other side, and Maggie had said very big, wonderful things about the baby, and then a while ago, the angel had made a crazy announcement about Mary, and here he was in the midst of so many things. Joseph chose to remain focused. He remained focused that he was a father. He remained focused that he had a unique responsibility that was there. Despite the temptations that were there, despite the distractions that were there, Maggie remained focused. They never followed they were never distracted. They followed what the angel had told them. And so it is very, very important. But again, of interest, even as we come to the close, is that in this chapter alone, we see that Matthew shares 4 instances of the fulfillment of the baby Jesus. The praise that Jesus Christ was to be born is in Bethlehem, as we read in chapter 2, verse number 6. And this prophecy was made in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. The second thing is about the escape by Joseph to Egypt in chapter 2, verse 15. This was fulfilled. This was prophesied in Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. Then the whole story about the death of babies was also of firstborns in Ramah was as written in chapter 2 verse 18 was actually prophesied in Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 15. And then the praise where Jesus Christ would recite, as we read in chapter 2 verse 23, was actually prophesied in Isaiah 53. Now Matthew chapter 2 then becomes encouragement, and more importantly is when God gives us a project, when God has assigned us a project and the enemy is about to attack us, the assurance is that God will protect us. And so we do not need to be worried. We don't need to be scared. And we don't need to run helter-skelter, scared that the enemy will be able to curtail or stop us or abort or kill the project that we are carrying. Just as Jesus was protected from the harmful, politically connected, and powerful, violent, evil king called Herod, the very same way is God going to protect you. You don't need to be worried. In the midst of COVID, in the midst of so many dangers, we can rest assured that we shall complete the race. We shall complete the journey. We shall make it because we are protected. This is a fresh word to the word. Thank you very much, Reverend Patrick, for following us, and Pastor Mwangi. Thank you very much, and the host of you that have followed us. And until next week on Tuesday at 10 p.m., please keep following us. And remember, today is the fresh word to the world. My name is John Kimani. What we say here is inawezekana.